Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Natasha Hamilton, luxury realtor with eXp Realty. And in today's video, I'm walking you through the latest King City real estate market update for March 2026. So if you're a buyer, seller, investor, or even just a homeowner trying to understand what's happening in the market, this video is going to give you a very clear picture of where King City stands right now and what that could mean for your next move. Before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss future market updates that I post. I post videos to help you stay informed on buying, selling, and navigating in the market here in King City and as well as the surrounding areas. Also, be sure to check out my other videos on YouTube and check out the helpful links in the description below. If you want to reach me directly after watching my video, my contact info is on screen, natasha.hamilton at exprealty.com, or you can call or text me at 226-974-6544, and my email, natashahamilton.exprealty.com. Now let's get into what the March numbers are really telling us. So let's start with the big headline. So King City is still absolutely a luxury market, but the way it's behaving right now, it's much more like a buyer's market than a seller's market. The numbers on the slide tell the story clearly. And so you can see here in March 2026, the median sale price was $1,832,500, and the average sale price was $2,020,000. There were 16 homes sold, and the market was sitting at 12 months of inventory. So, what does that actually mean in plain English? So, it means that prices are still high and King City is still a premium community, but there are enough listings on the market compared to the number of homes selling that buyers have much more leverage than they used to. So this is important because a lot of people assume that if prices are high, sellers must automatically be in control, but that's not always true. So a market can be expensive and still favor buyers if inventory is high and demand is relatively slower. So that is exactly what we are seeing here in King City right now. Now let's talk about pricing in a little more detail because this is where a lot of people get confused. So on this slide, you'll see the medium sales price of $1,832,500, the average price of $2,020,000, and the total dollar volume of $32,320,000 for the entire month. The median price is often the best number to look at if you want a better sense of what a more typical home is selling for, because it is less affected by a very few expensive luxury state sales. The average price, on the other hand, is helpful because it shows the overall value of the market. But in a place like King City, can be pulled upward by larger estate properties and high-end sales. So that's why I always tell people to look at both numbers together rather than relying on just one. Um, Dollar volume is also important. Even though only 16 homes sold, the total value of those sales is still over $32 million, which reinforces that this is still a very high value market. So the takeaway here is this. It's Sin City is still commanding premium pricing, but that premium pricing does not automatically mean sellers have the upper hand. Next, let's look at market activity. So in March, King City had 16 closed sales, 100 new listings, 194 active listings, and a sales to new listing ratio of 20.4%. So this is a really important part of the story because it shows us the relationship between new supply coming onto the market and actual demand being absorbed by buyers. A 20.4% sales to new listing ratio tells us that new inventory is coming onto the market much faster than homes are selling. So for sellers, that means more competition. For buyers, that means they have more choice. And if your home is not priced correctly or marketed properly or presented at a high level, it can get lost in all the inventory. For buyers, it means more options and more time to compare opportunities without the same urgency we see in a tighter market. So even though there is activity happening, the pace of the market is still relatively slow compared to the amount of inventory that's available. This is one of the most important slides in the entire presentation because months of inventory is one of the clearest indicators of market balance. So in March 2026, King City had 12 months of inventory. For comparison, York Region was about 5.5 months, and the GTA overall was at 4.5 months. So why does this matter? Months of inventory tells us how long it would take to sell all the current listings if no new listing came onto the market and homes kept selling at the current pace. So, generally speaking, the higher that number is, the more it favors buyers. So at 12 months, King City is not just slightly in the buyer's market territory. It is firmly there. Um, and when you compare that to York Region and the GTA, it becomes even more obvious that King City is moving slower than surrounding markets. And this means that buyers have more room to negotiate, more time to make decisions, and more ability to be selective. For sellers, it means strategy is everything. Now let's talk about how much negotiating power buyers actually have. So one of the best ways to measure that is by looking at the sales to list ratio, price ratio. So in King City, the average sale to list ratio in March was 93% compared to the 97% in York Region and 98% across the entire GTA. So a 93% sale to list ratio means buyers are on average purchasing homes below asking price and not by a tiny amount either. So that is meaningful. That is a meaningful gap, especially in a luxury market where price differences can represent significant dollars. Um, this is one of the strongest signals that buyers have leverage right now in a hot seller's market, homes tend to sell much closer to the asking price and sometimes even above asking, like we've seen in COVID times. That is not the environment where we are in today for King City. And for buyers, this creates opportunity. And for sellers, it means pricing with room for strategy and far more important than aspirational pricing. This slide is all about market speed and it gives us another clue about how conditions are shifting. So in March, the average listing days on market was 39 days, while the average property days on market was 72 days. So the reason both numbers matter is because listing days on market reflects um, how long sold listings were on the market, while property days on market is a broader measure that can include relisted properties, for example. And in other words, when you factor in properties that were listed, withdrawn, and relisted, the true time on market can be much longer. So that jump from 39 to 72 days tells us that some homes are taking much longer to move than they may initially appear to. And this usually happens when properties are overpriced, poorly positioned, or simply launched without the right marketing plan. So for sellers, the lesson is very clear. In this market, pricing too high can cost you more than just time. It can cost you leverage, and for buyers, longer days on market often create better negotiating opportunities. So that's something to keep in mind. Now let's zoom out and compare March 2026 to March 2025. So this is where we can really see the shift in market conditions. So year over year, sales were down 5.9%. New listings were up 12.4%. Active listings were up 15.5%, and months of inventory rose 50% from 8 to 12. And the sale to list ratio dropped from 95 to 93%. So, what stands out most here is not just price, it's the change in supply and leverage as well. So, more listings are coming to the market, more inventory is sitting, and sellers are not holding the same negotiating power they were a year ago. So, that's why I always tell clients that are looking at price alone can be misleading. And a market can have a relatively stable pricing on paper, but still be shifting substantially underneath in terms of competition, absorption, and bargaining power. And in King City, that shift has clearly moved toward a more buyer-friendly environment. Now let's compare March to the month before. Month over month, sales rose from 10 to 16, which is a 60% increase. New listings rose from 72 to 10, which is a 38.9 increase. And active inventory rose 6%, and months of inventory edged up from 11.8 to 12. And the sale to list ratio improved from 88% to 93%. So, yes, March showed some seasonal spring momentum. More homes sold, and buyers were somewhat more active than they were in February. But the key thing to understand is that inventory still increased and months of inventory still moved higher. So that tells us this was not a full tightening of the market. It was more of a spring pickup in activity, but not enough to erase the supply heavy conditions we are seeing overall. So if you're thinking the spring market is automatically means sellers are back in control, the data does not support that, at least not in King City right now. So let's talk about financing a bit because mortgage rates are still playing a major role in buyer psychology and affordability. And according to the reports, the Bank of Canada held its policy rates at 2.25% on March 18th, 2026. This means the consumer prime rate remained at 4.45%. The lowest 5-year variable rate was around 3.35%, and the best insured 5-year fixed rate was 3.9%, up from 3.79% in February. So, what does this all mean for King City specifically? Well, in a market where home averages are over $2 million, even relatively small shifts in borrowing costs can have a major affordability impact, monthly payments, and buyer confidence as well. So rates may have stabilized, but that does not necessarily mean buyers feel relief. In fact, stable but still elevated borrowing costs can keep many discretionary buyers cautious, especially in the luxury segment. So while rates are no longer the only story, they are still absolutely shaping the pace of demand and the way buyers approach negotiations. So this comparison slide is really useful because it puts King City into context. So King City's average price was 2,020,000 compared to the 1,164,324 in New York region and the 1,017,796 in the GTA. Its median price was 1,832,500 versus the 1,060,000 in York region and the 870,000 in the GTA. So at the same time, King City had 12 months of inventory compared with the 5.5 in York region and the 4.9 in the GTA and a 93% sale to list ratio compared to the 97 and 98% respectively. So the message here is clear. Let me explain. King City remains a premium priced market, but it is also softer and more negotiable than the broader region around it. That's what this means. So that combination is important. It means buyers are not just shopping in a luxury market, they are shopping in a luxury market where conditions favor negotiation more than in many surrounding areas. Now let's talk directly to buyers. So if you're a buyer looking in King City, the current market actually presents a very interesting opportunity. So with 194 active listings, you have more selection than usual in a luxury market right now. With a 93% sale to list ratio, there's real evidence that buyers are securing discounts. And with homes taking 39 to 72 days on market, you may have more time to evaluate properties carefully. And this does not mean every property is a deal, and it does not mean buyers should move without strategy, but it does mean the pressure and urgency that often define luxury markets are much lower right now. So if you've been waiting for a window where you can be more selective, negotiate more confidently, and avoid some of the, I would say, intensity of a tighter market, this may be one of the better opportunities we've seen in a long time. For sellers, I want to be very clear. Homes are still selling in King City, and this is still a highly prestigious market. But in today's conditions, success depends much more on precision pricing, definitely, and elevated presentation, and I would say a strategic marketing plan. In a market with 12 months of inventory, the buyers are selective and they have choice now. So they are comparing listings very carefully and they are negotiating harder. So if a property is overpriced, undermarketed, or not presented at the standard luxury buyer like it can sit, and sitting can weaken the seller's position significantly. So that's why pricing is not just about chasing the highest number, it's about creating the right strategy from day one to attract the strongest interests, I would say, and the best possible outcome. So what's the bottom line? King City remains one of GTA's premier luxury markets with an average sale price still above 2 million. But March 2026 clearly shows a market that is slower, more inventory heavy, and more buyer favorable than many people might expect. We have 12 months of inventory, 93% sale to list ratio, and a 72 property days on market, all pointing to a market where buyers have leverage and sellers need to be especially strategic. So, whether you're buying, selling, or simply planning ahead, this is not a market to approach based on guesswork or outdated assumptions. The data matters 100%, and understanding it properly can make a real difference in your decision making. So if you're thinking about buying or selling in King City, or even if you just want to understand what your home might be worth in today's market, I'd be happy to help. This is the kind of market where the right advice and the right strategy can make a big difference. So whether you need a private market consultation, a custom home value analyst, or a luxury listing game plan, or even a buyer strategy session, that's exactly what I help clients with. You can reach me anytime. Email natasha.hamilton at exprealty.com. You can call or text me at 226-974-6544. You can check out my website at natashahamilton.exprealty.com. And if you found this presentation helpful, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And also check out my other videos on YouTube and check out the helpful links in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys again next month.